Hi, my name is Angela Moore. I am a realtor with Keller Williams Citywide.
Hi, I'm Liesel Darby. I'm a divorce mediator and a divorce coach with Intentional Divorce Solutions.
So, Liesel and I are both professional women who have been through a divorce. Like, we understand, various aspects of the entire divorce process. And we got to talking and we were discussing how our professional lives intersect and how hard it can be when you're going through a divorce, especially around the house and what happens with it. So we've done this little series of videos to educate you on what are your options when it comes to the situation and what's going to happen to the house during a divorce.
Yep.
So what are your options when you are getting divorced and you own a home with your soon-to-be ex-partner?
Well, one of the things you can do is you can sell the house and split the proceeds. One person could give up all the rights to the house, and the other one is one person can buy out the other person.
So in the last two instances, one of those individuals, so if there's two people that own a house, they're getting divorced, and one either gives up the rights or one buys the other one out, one person's staying in that house.
Correct.
Okay. So what are some things that you need to take into consideration when if you're the one who's going to be staying in the house? Like what are some of the things that you need to be aware of that could happen?
One of the things, and I'm sure you've run into this too, is can you even afford to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know a lot of people get very, very attached to their homes, and it's like, I'm staying in the house at all costs, I don't care. But you got to understand that you might have bought this house way back when interest rates were rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get your ex off of the mortgage and
Mm-hmm.
the loan, you have to refinance.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to refinance at today's rates.
Yeah.
And that can make a huge difference in what your budget's going to be. And you really have to take a look at that and see if it's even feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or even if that's your main priority and you are dead set that that's going to happen, you might really have to take a look at your budget and what that's going to look like. And unfortunately, most of the time it's a woman's financial
Mm-hmm.
situation that takes a direct hit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've stayed home with the kids, you've taken some time out of the workforce. Usually, a lot of times women will take a job that allows for more flexibility
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do that, and that usually means you're not at work so much to get promotions and be making more. And unfortunately, still a woman earns about 22 cents or 22% of what a man earns. Just
Yeah,
to begin with,
22% less. Yeah.
22% less. So
Yeah.
when you get divorced, you might be dealing with a whole other financial situation that you were not expecting, and you haven't taken into consideration that it might cost a whole lot more out of your budget just to stay in that house.
Right. And so one of the things that I always tell clients when they come to me and they say, I'm considering buying my soon-to-be ex-partner out, my first question is who is on the deed and who is on the mortgage?
Right.
Because that's going to make some deciding factors for you. So it sounds like, you're saying the same thing,
Yeah.
like make sure that you know the information, then find out if you can afford
Mm-hmm.
it, and
Yeah.
then make the best decision from there. Okay. What emotional impact can come when you are leaving the home that you have shared
Yeah.
with your soon-to-be ex-partner?
Yeah, and this is where it gets really emotional for a lot of people, especially if you have kids and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is where all the memories are of these kids. Here's the pencil marks on the door. So as they were growing up, there's the tree that they fell out of when they were 6. Over here's the swing set. It's really easy to have a lot of sentimentality to your house where you've lived. What I tell people is that home is where your heart is. It's not a particular place. And that might sound corny, but it actually is very true.
Yeah.
I grew up in a house where it wasn't divorced, but we moved several times when I was a child. And so it wasn't, it wasn't for a reason that my parents were, it wasn't a traumatic reason. It's just my dad was getting transferred to places. And I took my cues from my parents. So it was always, oh, this is a new adventure. Oh, we're going to have a new house. Oh, you're going to get a new bedroom. You're going to make new friends. That was the spin that was put on it. It was not, oh, you're going to leave all your friends behind and your school. it was always, the focus was on the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And your children will take their cues from you.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than, kind of wallowing in the sadness of it, if you can frame it as, okay, this is a new part of our life. We're going to make the best of this. And, we're going to take into your consideration what you would like. Maybe we get to go house hunting and you can come with me, or apartment housing, or whatever it is that you're doing. But you can put the spin on it, and your kids will take the cue from that. Because I know a lot of times that's the big thing for the parents is, they don't want to leave their friends. It's already a disruption in their life. And I get that. That is true. But you don't have to let that worry you so much that if you need to move, it's not going to ruin your kids' lives.
No.
They are resilient. There's some big lessons that can come out of this. Like, I need to learn how to make new friends. These are the kids I've known since I was in kindergarten, so it's not been a challenge. And it's really good to just build character, like take on new challenge. How are you going to handle that? Go to a new school. How am I going to handle that? Your kids can handle it.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you have to protect your kids so much from these life events. It's okay that they're going to be okay.
Yeah. I think that communication is going to be a big thing. And give yourself the time to grieve.
Yes.
But give yourself almost like a deadline.
Yeah.
I know when I moved out of my house, I said I'm going to give myself 3 days to be sad. And then I'm going to start moving forward. Yeah. And, for some people, 3 days is like, that's not enough time. You need a lot more time than that. And that's perfectly fine. But figure out what that is for you, because you have to go through all the emotions, but you don't want to get stuck there.
Right. And you are going to be dealing with grief for many different reasons. Yes. Your loss of a marriage is that's a huge loss. Even if you can't stand the other person now, it's still a loss, because now your holidays are going to look different. Birthdays are going to look different. Mother's Day is going to look different.
Yeah.
All kinds of things are going to change, and they are losses. Part of life, but you do have to recognize that. The other thing I would say I love the idea of setting a time limit on allowing yourself to do this. The other thing you can do is buy an egg timer. And set it for like 15 minutes and say, okay, for 15 minutes, I'm going to wallow in this. Like really, really get into it. And then when that timer goes off, you're done, and have something else set up for you to go and think about it or go do. Like, already have that pre-planned, not just like, oh, my time is up now. What am I going to do? I still feel really sad. Say, after this, I'm going for a run. After this, I'm cleaning the bathroom. After this, I'm going shopping. So something that you're going to do when that timer goes off. Yeah. And you will find that over time you will naturally move through that, but it keeps you from wallowing.
Yeah, and sometimes
so important.
Sometimes you need to do the egg timer 5 days in a row, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
But you're training yourself. Feel it, go through it. Now let's move forward.
Yes, it's so important.
Very important.
Let's say you have decided that you're going to sell the house. All right. So what's involved in selling a house during a divorce that's different from a typical home sale?
So when I work with clients who are in the process of getting divorced, most of the time, one individual is still living in the house, one is not. But what I do is I set the ground rules from the very start. And when I say ground rules, I mean, when I communicate with one of you, the other person is also getting the same message. And a lot of times it's in a group text. So you guys are getting it from me at the exact same time. I am not having one conversation with partner A and then a completely different conversation with partner B when it comes to the house that you are selling. I've had situations where I was brought in to help sell a home for 2 individuals who were getting divorced. And one of them decided to use me for buying the next house, but the other person said, no, I want to keep that separate. I'm going to go get a different realtor. And that was 100% fine. Yeah. So when I say ground rules, for me, it's about what's fair for everybody in this situation. My goal is to get each of you as much money as possible out of the transaction and to make your life as easy as possible during the process. Selling a house is not easy. Yeah. It's hard and it's emotionally taxing. And it's stressful, especially if you are living in the house and showing it and people are coming through it, and it's a lot. So I set those ground rules up like right from the very start. The other piece that I tend to have a conversation with, what is your lowest number that you both are willing to accept. You know, because it could be a situation where partner A just wants it done and over with so they can move on with their life.
Whatever.
And partner B needs a little more time and wants more money. You know, so they want to put like some effort into the house. They want to get top dollar, you know, so they have very different priorities.
Yeah.
Okay, well then we need to agree on a timeline, and we need to agree on what your bottom line number is. And I'm not saying we're going to start at that number. I'm going to say that's our worst case scenario number. So having those conversations up front, I think is very helpful, because it's one less piece of contention between the two parties. And the more that I can eliminate or lower the conflict, the better for everybody.
Yeah. I remember, if I could just share my story, when my husband told me he wanted to get a divorce, he already had a realtor lined up to come in like 3 days after he dropped that bomb on me, and I was not ready. It didn't matter. I mean, and our realtor was so good. She she felt so bad for me. I just remember as she's showing, you know, she's taking a tour of our house, and I actually just slumped against the wall and sank down in a pose. I usually am really in control of my emotions, and I was not. It was too soon for me. And we did not have that conversation about what was the lowest we would accept. And it did become a contention point, because I wanted to get more out of the house. And this was in 2014. So it still wasn't a great market. So my husband was like, you know, if anybody gives us a decent offer, I want to take it, without defining what a decent offer was.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, I want to stay here as long as I can. I mean, just from my point of view, it's like, I'm not in a rush to do this. Yeah. And I want to wait until we can get more out of it. And it took us 10 months to sell that house. Yeah. And we sold it for exactly what we bought it for. And I was not happy about that. But, you know, it's like, it's time to move on. And at that point, I kind of was ready to do that. But I think I love that you take the time to get that set straight up before the process begins. Yeah, knowing when I come in what the priorities are for each person, and then where those priorities meet, because very rarely do they meet, right? Very rarely do they both have the exact same priority, right? So it's finding where that overlap is, and then trying to work with each one and showing it. You fight over a lot of things when, you know, you could fight over a lot of things when it comes to a divorce, and that's, if I can take one thing off of your plate that you're not going to fight about, or that you're going to have just a regular conversation with, you know, that's fine. Now, there have been instances of situations where I was involved in where the partners were like, yeah, it's fine. Like, okay, no problem. You go with that? You go with that? Yeah, we're good. And it just like got along super well, and they just knew it was the right decision. But if you're in a situation that's really contentious and you have to sell a house, I would say get a realtor who's going to be straight and transparent with both of you, have the group text messages set up, and make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of priorities and bottom line number. Just aside, when I do mediation, it's the same thing. It's like if you are emailing me, it better be CC'd to the other person too. I will always respond to both of you too, for transparency reasons, because you don't ever want somebody to feel like you're taking one side over the other. No. And it's really, even if it's not a contentious divorce, it's still not a happy thing. No. And I know that you're well aware of this too, and you've already alluded to it, but sometimes one person has been planning a divorce for a year or so. Like they've been planning their exit strategy, and maybe the other person has no clue. Yeah. And then, you know, I tell my clients, I said, it's nobody ever wakes up on a Tuesday morning and just casually says, oh, I think I'd like to see what divorce is like. There's a lot of pain that has led up to this point. But some people still are caught by surprise because they're like, oh, we'll work through it, or they're unaware that there's, you know, been an affair going on in the background. Yeah. That was my case. I didn't know what was going on. And so people can have a lot on their plate emotion-wise, and then selling a house on top of that can just be like, please. Make this as easy as you can.
And it could be the other way around too, where you're the one who has been planning it for a long time, and your partner, your soon-to-be ex-partner, feels a little blindsided. Remember to give them that time to kind of adjust as well.
Yeah, you have to. I think having a realtor come in like 3 days after he dropped the bomb on me was probably a little
soon. A lot. That's a lot.
Because I wasn't able to regulate my emotions at that point.
That's a lot.
It was okay, and she was fantastic. I have nothing but good things to say for her, and I just feel bad for her that she had to see she had to see me in that state. And at one point, I think somebody suggested that I smudge the house with sage it to get rid of all of the bad feelings that were lingering around. Yeah, so there's lots that goes into that. I know. Well, can somebody even buy a house in this current market?
So the answer is yes, you can. And typically, so right now we're in a seller's market. We've been in a seller's market for a couple of years. And it's been a situation where sellers can pretty much kind of ask whatever price they want, and they were getting it. We're coming out of that. We're coming more into a normalized market, which is great. And there are I have closed several houses this year. I mean, I've already done, it's May, and I have closed 17 transactions far this year. So yes, people are buying houses. Yeah. Yes. It's all about being strategic in your offer and making sure that it makes sense for you down the road. You don't want to pay $20,000 over list for a price that you don't absolutely love just because you need to get somewhere.
Right.
If you have to rent for a while, that's 100% okay. Yeah. There are a ton of options. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer involves being very strategic about your offers, finding out what your buying power is, and then how do you increase that? So are you able to offer additional money at closing for an appraisal gap? Like if a house appraises under what you've said you pay for it. Are you able to be flexible on your closing date? Are you able to pay for any of the closing costs for the seller? There are ways to do it. Yeah. And I'm one of those, people who tend to believe in if it's meant to be your house, it will be your house. Yeah. But it doesn't hurt to throw what you can at it if it really feels like that's the one.
If you love it. I've moved enough. I've owned 7 houses in my lifetime. Yep. That I knew immediately when I walked in a house if it was for me or not.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Oh yeah. Most people know. I want to say it was a statistic that people know within 15 seconds if a house is not for them. Yeah. Within 15 seconds. And usually by the end of it, they know one way or the other, but it's usually a very quick gut feeling that you get.
And so I've been hearing from some of my clients that they kind of want to dip their toe into looking at stuff, and I find myself, I've been telling them, if you find something you like, you better be prepared to buy. Have your checkbook out and make a great offer, because it really doesn't do any good to just kind of see what's out there. And what if you do like something right away and you're not ready to buy? It's not going to be on the market.
No, I definitely tell people, listen, if you're even remotely interested, contact a lender and get a pre-approval.
Get pre-approved.
Find out what your budget is. Find out, and then not just from I can spend up to $300,000. It's that means I'm going to pay X amount in mortgage every month. Can I actually afford that? Yeah. Have those conversations now, because if the dream house pops up on Zillow tomorrow, which is a Saturday, a lot of lenders don't do pre-approvals over the weekend, which means you have to wait till Monday, Tuesday. Chances are, if it's an amazing house, it's completely updated, has everything you want, it could be gone. So, yes, you can buy a house. Talk to a realtor as quickly as possible. Get the information that you need. Get your pre-approval, and go from there. And don't assume one way or the other. Be like, I know I can buy a house, so I'm not going to worry about the pre-approval until I actually find the house. No. Go.
You won't have time.
Go do it. Go do it. Yeah. And if you think there's no way I can buy a house right now, go and talk to an agent. Have them work with a lender and see what your options are, because it could be that you either could and you didn't realize it, or B, it's a situation where, hey, if you do these 3 things and you save up this amount of money, you'll be able to buy in 6 months.
Yeah.
which is huge.
Yeah,
Which
that
is
is
huge.
And, you know, I always talk about fear, which is a large part of what people experience when they're going through divorce.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's really just unanswered questions.
Yes.
That's really all fear is, because it's the unknown, right? We fear the unknown, because you can't do anything with the unknown.
Yeah.
You can't do anything with the unknown. So the more that you can pinpoint what your questions actually are, like what's that fear coming from, and get your answers, you'll feel so much better.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Even if it's not, even if the answer is like, okay, I can't afford that level of a house, but I can look at these, and these are just as cute, you know, maybe even better, because maybe I don't want to have 4 bathrooms I have to clean now, you know. You can always look for the positive, because there always is something good to be grateful for.
There is. Yeah. Find the positive and check in with your gut. Like, trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
There's something inside of you that will tell you what direction you want to go.
Yeah. And I think that's really true too. Like, if you walk in a house and on the outside everything is perfect, you walk in and something doesn't feel right, please listen to that voice.
Yes.
Because, you know, our subconscious picks up on things that, you know, we're not consciously processing, that we can't say, well, I feel funny about this, but I can't tell you why.
Yes.
And then I've known so many people that have overridden that feeling, and then they find out the problems later.
Yes.
Major problems. And if they had just listened to that little voice, no matter how much you want that house,
oh my gosh, yeah.
You need to trust yourself and be able to back out and say, I trust myself that something is not right here.
Yeah, we're not buying a sweater. Right? This is a house. This is a major investment. This is where you're going to be spending your time outside of work. And for a lot of us, while we're working, like some of us spend 24/7 in our houses. But I always tell my clients, if it's not a heck yes, it's a no.
It's a, yeah. Yep.
You know, don't bid on a house just because, well, it's okay. No, don't do that.
Don't do that. It's too much at stake.
No.
Too much at stake.
Only if it's a heck yes.
Yeah.
Then you